Hello, everyone. I haven't gotten nervous the whole conference, but when I've been speaking to you until you all got quiet when I started standing up here. Okay. I don't want to introduce myself again, but I guess I will. I'm Renee Kerrigan. Hi. I am the Curator of Science and the Planetarium Director here at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and I've been your host for the GLPA+WAC Conference 2024. Hey, here's my husband, Kyle, and I love him very much, and so thanks, Kyle, for being here. I just wanted to have a moment to say a special thanks to the people who have helped make this conference come together. And I will say that when I do this, I'm probably going to leave some people out because so many people help make a conference come together. But I did want to take a moment to try to recognize some people that I just didn't want to miss. So first of all, the staff of the Peoria Riverfront Museum has been really helpful. And this isn't actually our whole staff, but I couldn't find a picture of our whole staff because you know how it goes. But Jenny's here tonight. Jenny helped with the event tonight. A brand new employee, Katie, was helping with all the setups that we had at lunches and things like that. Cheryl, our front of house manager, and her VSA team, our part-time team, they helped set everything up, and everyone was so nice and welcoming. I never like it personally when I have to ask a bunch of people to do a bunch of things for me. And that's what I felt like I was doing for this conference, and everyone was super helpful. So thank you to the staff of the Peoria Riverfront Museum. Let's hear it for Sheldon Schaefer. I want to share two really quick stories. So the first picture is a picture from the transit of Venus. The one, what year was that? 2012? 2012. So I started working for the museum and for Sheldon in 2010. So 2009 actually. So I think I had just graduated Bradley, maybe. Yeah, I had graduated Bradley when we took this picture, but it's one of the earliest pictures I have of me and Sheldon together. And then the other pictures of Sheldon and I in the Mars exhibition, and Sheldon and his family actually helped sponsor that exhibition that I put together a couple of years ago. So I have two very quick stories to share about Sheldon. First of all, he's been driving you all over the place for this conference. Thank you, Sheldon, for your help. It's been invaluable. One story I wanted to share was from the end of my internship. I was started at the museum as an intern at Lakeview Museum of Arts and Sciences, our former museum, which was a lot smaller. It was a very amazing environment. It awakened my love for science and astronomy. I didn't know any science or astronomy until I started working at the museum and started working in the planetarium. I couldn't identify a single constellation until I started working in the planetarium. We were closing that museum, and we were moving downtown and opening this museum. And I was extremely sad. And people kept on asking me, why are you sad? You're moving to a better place. And the thing is, that museum gave me the confidence, and that my internship at that museum helped me understand who I could be. It gave me the confidence that I was good at teaching about science. It gave me an environment that I felt safe and curious, and I felt like I belonged in a place I hadn't ever had before. And Sheldon was a huge part of that. And so we had this goodbye lunch for somebody who wasn't moving downtown with us to the new museum. And I started to sob. And Sheldon was sitting next to me, and he's like, why are you crying? And it was I'm just so worried about moving downtown, and everything is changing, and I know you're going to retire eventually, and I'm just really worried about you not being my friend anymore. I don't know if Sheldon remembers this, but I do. And I said, and he said quietly, I will always be your friend, Renee. And he has always been my friend. I knew this conference was going to make me cry, so I was... Okay, the other really quick story is that back in 2015, we got a GLPA+WAC email about the Astronomy in Chile Educator Ambassador Program. It was the first year of that program. They said that they were going to accept 9 people to go on this expedition to the telescopes in Chile to learn about those telescopes and help teach other people. I deleted it. I was like, there's no way I'm qualified for that. And then Sheldon forwarded me that email. He said, apply for this. And I said, I can't apply for that. They're only going to accept 9 people out of the whole country. There's no way they will accept me. And he responded, he said, you apply for this, I will help you. You will be one of the 9 people. And I got it, and it changed my whole career. So let's hear it for Sheldon Schaefer. Okay, you haven't seen David around much at this conference, but David Steve, he is the person who manages the technology in the Giant Screen Theater. If any of you were here in 2013, he was here in 2013, making sure the technology in the Giant Screen Theater worked well together. Well, then, we've worked together since this museum opened. He's a very good friend of mine, and he made sure even though he wasn't present, he set all of this up so that the theater would be super smooth. And so thank you, David. Nick Ray doesn't like being recognized for the amazing work that he does, but he's my number 1. I worked with Nick since I was an intern at the museum. He will do anything he says he will do. I can rely on him absolutely. If he says if there's anything wrong, Nick will help fix it. And I couldn't do anything I do without the help of Nick Ray. So let's hear it for Nick Ray. These 2 ladies stepped up for this conference. There was a few things that really stressed me out, and I asked for help, and they fixed it. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Katie. And Steve Crawford is GLPA's technology chair. And so, we made a new website. We had a new membership portal, and there were many hours of work that went into getting the conference ready ahead of time, and Steve contributed to a lot of that. Also, just an ear for when things were difficult, always someone to help when there was a problem, and then during this conference, he's been heading up videography as well. So thank you so much, Steve, for all of the tremendous help that you gave this conference. And finally, to Shannon, who is our serves as a deputy conference planner, but also just was so thoughtful at helping when I needed help. So anything I needed, she was like, I'll fix it, I'll take care of it. And helped build the digital website, or the digital conference notebook, like over half of that was Shannon put in. Tremendously helpful, and family I've found along the way. I'm really grateful for Shannon. Okay, my last thank you is to all of you. I'm really, really grateful for all of you. This network of planetarium professionals means a lot to me. I started my first GLPA conference is the Champaign one in 2011, and I missed 2012 because that conference happened when this museum opened. But besides that, I've been to every GLPA conference that's been hosted since that time, and there's no other professional network that is as helpful, as welcoming, and as meaningful to me as the GLPA conference, and just the planetarium community as a whole, really. I'm really grateful for all the ways we support each other, for all the ways we help each other out, and for the friendships that I've developed, and I know many of you have developed with each other through all the years of the stars bringing us all together. So Thank you for being here, and thank you for making this network such a wonderful supporting environment for all of us to be in. Thank you. Okay, and now, who's Dan?
Hi again, everybody. I get to do the hard job. I was putting together, as I mentioned in the business meeting, the past president oversees the history committee, and frankly, Gary Beckstrom, our longtime historian, does a lot of the work of paying attention to who has passed in our community. And yeah, worked together to put together some notes, and Mark said, well, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. So yeah, we want to take some time to remember members of our community who have passed on and left us. And since we didn't really, it wasn't a GLPA banquet last year, we didn't do the traditional remembrances and memorials that we would have last year. We did mention some names at the business meeting, but we wanted to catch up on the last few years with a full acknowledgement here at the banquet. So we'll step through some people who've passed away over the last few years and some remembrances of them. Ooh, I had notes. I don't see my notes on here. Hold on a second. I know. I tell people never to use Google Slides in my planetarium. Let's try it again. Yeah. Okay. Did that do anything? I'm an AV professional, everybody. Okay. Yes? Yes? No? Okay. All right. Oh, thank you for AV technical support. Yeah, I'm willing, but it's just mirroring displays, right? Well, while Steve is pulling that up, I do remember my notes about John Christian. John Christian, you might see, passed away in 2016. Because he had left the planetarium community many years earlier, we were not informed of his passing until recently. John Christian was, he studied astronomy at EMU, actually studied and then taught, and also moved up to Flint and taught at Mott Community College, where he became assistant director of the Longway Planetarium in the 1960s and 1970s. In the mid-late 1970s, he left the planetarium field to pursue his interest in meditation, among other topics, and yeah, unfortunately passed away in 2016. So many of us might be too young to have known him, but certain members who were around in the 1970s may recall John from the Longway Planetarium. We also want to recognize the passing of Dave Parker. Dave passed away in 2022. Dave taught in the Tiptown Community Schools Planetarium, but his day job was actually as a seed inspector. He was very proud of his 37 years as a corn seed inspector. He was a graduate from Ball State University, and significantly, he was the longtime secretary/treasurer of the Great Lakes Planetarium Association throughout the 1980s and into the 1990s. At that time, secretary and treasurer was one position, and when we considered splitting that up into two positions in the late 2000s, Dave was very influential in telling us we should split it up. It's a job with two different duties. So he's had very, very strong influence on who we are. And of course, in my role as both secretary and then into president, have deeply relied on his minutes throughout those years to reference what was going on in that age. Very significant to building GLPA up into the organization it is today. And he was the second ever GLPA Service Award winner. So, and as we went through to looking back at past pictures, and you might have noticed it on one of Renee's slides, but Dave is he has the biggest grin on his face in every picture that has been taken of him. And that made me really think of oh yeah, that is how I remember him. He was always smiling, always so joyful to be here. So very sorry for the loss of Dave Parker. Also in 2022, we lost Warren Young. Warren Young was the founder of the Ward Beecher Planetarium in Youngstown. He was an astronomy professor there when the college decided to build a planetarium, and served as director of the planetarium for 40 years and spent 25 years as the astronomy department chair. Pulling together these notes, I came across his retirement note from Youngstown State University, which included the mention that when he went to interview for the job with the college president, it was during John Glenn's spacewalk, and the president said, well, you want to watch this with me? But the only TV in my house is upstairs in my bedroom, and my wife is sick in bed. So the story is that he got the job by hanging out with the president and his wife in bed watching TV. So, many other anecdotes where, yeah, he he really seems like he was quite a spark. And obviously, Ward Beecher Planetarium, hugely influential in our community. So many people came up through that planetarium, had a connection to it. And of course, it is sort of our Phoenix Planetarium that has just come back and reopened after its fire last year. And of course, we're all familiar with the passing of Dale Smith last year. I grabbed this picture of Dale from my first conference to sort of take me back to how I remembered him. Dale was an incredibly influential member of our community. He has served as president of GLPA, he has served as president of IPS, and he has been incredibly significant through his roles in both publication committees for IPS and GLPA in the professionalization of our communities. He took the proceedings of our conferences very seriously as, indeed, the professional record that we were doing a real conference, we were talking about real things, and yeah, he treated us like the professionals that we were. Incredibly influential figure, been recognized by many awards from us and the IPS, and yeah, it is a tremendous loss to no longer have Dale in our community. I know he touched many lives, he shaped many people, so yeah, we're thankful we got to have Dale as part of GLPA. Also passing in 2023 was Doris Forer. She worked for many years at the Walter R. Schule Planetarium. She was a longtime member of GLPA and everybody's favorite acronym planetarium organization, CRAP, as well. The Cleveland Regional Association for Planetariums, for anyone who has not heard that before. Doris was also one of our first IPS representatives. I think she might have actually been the second one after our initial IPS representative in the late 1970s decided to no longer pursue that. She was elected to the position and served as IPS rep through the 1980s. So really someone who helped shape GLPA and IPS's relationship, which I think continues quite strong today. She left the planetarium to become an education specialist for NASA at what was then Lewis Research Center, is now Glenn Research Center, and then also went on to found Discovery Works at the Avon Lake Library, an innovative hands-on physics play space at the library. So she had significant influence on communities within GLPA and beyond, and indeed part of that connection of outreach between NASA organizations and planetariums. This year, we saw the passing of Alex Mack. Alex Mack, for a long time, led the University of Toledo Planetarium. Many of you may remember him as our conference host in 2019. And he's someone who I think was a very influential mentor to the students who came through his planetarium. I know I met him many years ago through Waylena, who, if you didn't know, was one of his students back in the day. And I've heard from Waylena the same thing I also heard from Heidi, who worked with him for many years, of he was someone who really cared about his students and his interns. And when school is a struggle. I didn't make it through. But when he saw his students struggling, he made sure they made it through. He made sure that they had the help and the resources. He had the inspirational talks to bolster them. And he told the people who worked with him that, yeah, you can succeed, you can excel in this career if it's what you want to do. So we're very sorry to have lost Alex Mack. And finally, my very dear friend Erin Steinert passed away about 2 months ago, just days after her 41st birthday. She was the director of the CPC-Co Planetarium in Columbia Basin College. You might remember she joined GLPA in 2017 with the Pleiades Conference, and she has hosted trivia at our hospitality suites for the last several years. And since her passing, I've heard from many people in the planetarium community and beyond of what an incredible inspirational figure she was. She made people feel like they could be themselves, be who they truly were inside. And talking with her husband after her passing, he said he saw in her that she fully bloomed into who she was after she came to that Pleiades conference in 2017. So I think it's important that we remember that chain reaction of inspiration that we can provide in this community, that the encouragement and support we give people to be themselves also shapes the people they influence in their own lives. It shapes our audience, it shapes everybody we know. So yeah, it's been very hard losing so many people, and we're thankful to have them. And so I think, as always, we take a moment of silence to remember those who we've lost in this community before we continue with the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Our next order of business is our second last award of the evening, the Mentor Award. The Mentor Award is to recognize individuals who have consistently provided encouragement and opportunities for students and or other individuals to become involved in the planetarium profession, thereby promoting continuity of the profession. Successful recipients must nurture interest in planetarium operation, create opportunities for students and or others to learn how to prepare and present quality planetarium programs, be a member in good standing for 5 consecutive years, exemplify the code of ethics and position statements, model quality planetarium work, and demonstrate the nature of the planetarium profession as a career, and to encourage and support participation by those mentored in being involved in GLPA. I'd like to now invite the nominator of this year's award, Dr. Shannon Schmoll. Shannon and our other nominators have a few words to share with you before we introduce our awardee.
All right. I think he can see me. So speaking of a continuity of inspiration, I think this is, I'm going to cry up here as well, so come here. He's looking at me. This is the mentor award for someone who I think you can clearly see has mentored many planetarians over the years, through many generations. We had several people write letters, most of who are here right now, and one more. But this is I'm sorry. This is someone who loved working with his students, encouraging them. For me personally, this is there he is, Matt Lincoln. When I was a baby grad student and a baby planetarian, I wandered over to the U of M Museum of Natural History. I chose U of M as my graduate school because they had the better planetarium. Among other reasons, there were a lot. But they had the other planetarium, but they also had 2. They had an optomechanical in Angel Hall, which I got to use throughout grad school to teach, but we also had a UniView planetarium at the U of M Museum of Natural History, which is what Matt ran. And I wandered over to his office because I was like, I want to be involved, and I was excited. I was overexcited. I probably scared him. But he was not. He did not act scared. I think he took me to Amy's office, the director of the museum, and she seemed scared. He did not. But I was just like, I want to be here and work with you and let me do his stuff. And he did. He took me in there. He showed me UniView. He gave me my first experience on a digital planetarium. I hadn't used one yet. And he was there and encouraged me. He told me from the beginning, go join GLPA. I took until after grad school to finally listen to that advice. I'm sorry, Matt. I really should have listened to you much, much sooner. And when I decided to switch gears from astronomy to astronomy and education, he was right there. He talked through my ideas. He got me the resources I needed. He sat on my dissertation committee, and he was the friendly face right there amongst the very stern faces who had to ask me all the hard questions to make sure that I got through that. And I am the planetarian I am today because of Matt. So, Matt, you deserve this, and thank you for everything. I will pass it on now.
Right. Hi, Matt. I'm Mary Holt, for anybody that hasn't met me yet. Interestingly, my path to planetarium also involves Shannon because I took my first astronomy class at Lansing Community College, and that was my first realization that astronomy isn't just sitting in a cold room by yourself staring at the stars at 2 a.m. I was like, oh, there's like math and stuff. Oh, cool. So that was my introduction to like astronomy as a career. And then I transferred to University of Michigan and started there for astronomy. And my first year, I actually didn't go to the Natural History Museum at all. I didn't even know they had a planetarium for a little while, but I did volunteer in the Angel Hall Planetarium and was involved in the student group, the Student Astronomical Society. And Matt would often try to get students from the Student Astronomical Society to come and work over at the planetarium at the Natural History Museum. So my second year, there's a lot of things in my life have just been like, I don't know, just go and be thrown into it. Like my first planetarium show was my friend being like, you're going to give the show today. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. He's like, yo, you're going to do it. And similarly, my second year at Michigan, I was president of SAS because nobody else wanted to do it and nobody else was there. So he approached me because I was president and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, I can get a job over here. And I remember having a nice long conversation with Matt and as my interview, and like it didn't even feel like an interview, it just felt like a conversation, and he showed me around and everything. And I worked there for about 5 years or so, and Matt took me to my first GLPA meeting, and I think it was 2014 at East Lansing, and here I am now. So Matt, like, if Matt wasn't there, I probably wouldn't be here today. And he's always wonderful at keeping in touch and checking in with those of us that have moved on to other places and stuff. And it's a wonderful, wonderful mentor, very much deserved. So.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Matt. I'm Dylan Borgerding. I'm at the Adler Planetarium. I first met Matt Linke in 2019 when I was working at the University of Michigan Museum of Natural History. Thank you. Yeah. And I had known that they had a planetarium there, but it wasn't open. They were transitioning to a new building. And so I had to wait until I was a sophomore to be able to apply for a job. And I got the job, but they weren't open yet. And so there's a lot of waiting that I had to do, but eventually they did open up. And then something else happened very shortly after. The pandemic hit. And so we were immediately closed again. It was just Matt and I working in the dome, like sort of part-time, doing what we could, doing live shows online. And at that time, I got to know Matt really well. As soon as I started working at the planetarium, I noticed Matt was somebody special. He was always in contact, telling me about how he was going to have lunch with some of his old staff members, and I could tell just how important that was to him. I think why Matt stayed so long, or as long as he did at that museum, was because he cared so much about the students that he worked with and how he could encourage them and how he could see them grow. And I was one of those people, I think. Matt, during the pandemic, I was having some personal issues of my own. My family was going through medical issues, and that's usually something I keep pretty private, but that was something that I felt comfortable enough with Matt to open up about. And right away, we started doing Zoom meetings, like very often, usually every week, and they were technically like work meetings, but most of the time it was just us chatting and checking in on each other. And that was a really incredible support system for me at the time. I think Matt is such a great mentor. If everybody could just be a little bit more like Matt, the world would be a much, much better place.
And my name is Buddy Stark. I have the very great good fortune of being Matt's successor at the University of Michigan Museum of Natural History. And I have also the privilege today of giving you my own words, but also reading a letter from one who couldn't be here tonight and their thoughts about Matt's worthiness of this award. From my perspective, I've had also the good fortune of knowing Matt for about 10 years now, mostly at conferences and state meetings and things like this. But in the last 3 to 4 years, I've gotten to know him better because there was this transition period, and I also was able to sit down and talk with him a lot. He's still, like a lot, planetariums retire, right, planetarians, and so he's still around a fair bit. We get to have lunch together and just sort of catch up and chat. And many of you know that if you're in the room with Matt for 5 minutes, what shines through is this really remarkable humility of character that I think allows a lot of people to open up to Matt in ways that we can't with a lot of other people. So things that Dylan was talking about. And because of that, a lot of students have come to Matt. I know because if you talk to Matt, the other thing that he does is virtually every story he has is related to a past student and the great things that they're doing now, right? That is like the thing that he talks about more than anything else, because that's what he cares about, is that the people that he's interacted with and involved with are now doing really remarkable, amazing things. And all of that is tremendously refreshing, and I know he's had a big impact on my life and my career as well, that's still sort of starting out. And now I'd like to read a letter of recommendation from Julia Plummer. Julia Plummer from Pennsylvania State University writes, "It is with great pleasure and enthusiasm that I write this letter of recommendation for Matthew Linke, a highly deserving candidate of the Great Lakes Planetarium Association Mentor Award. I worked with Matt for 9 years as a planetarium operator at the University of Michigan's Exhibit Museum of Natural History. During that time, Matt also served on my dissertation committee for my PhD in astronomy and education. Matt's impact on my professional and academic journey has been profound, shaping the trajectory of my career in significant ways. Matt's dedication to mentorship extends beyond the planetarium. His influence has helped me to reach my current position as a professor of science education at Pennsylvania State University. Additionally, I serve as the research editor for the Planetarian, further highlighting the lasting impact of Matt's mentorship on my professional achievements and contributions to the field. During my years of working with Matt in the Exhibit Museum's planetarium, I was incredibly fortunate to have Matt's guidance about work in the planetarium field. He helped me develop my craft as an educator. Matt consistently made time for meaningful discussions and offered valuable insights, not only for me, but for all the docents working at the museum. He was calm, thoughtful, patient, and supportive. One of Matt's exceptional qualities was his encouragement of creativity within the planetarium. He provided me with opportunities to explore and express my ideas, including the chance to write and produce a planetarium program and develop my own live shows. His encouragement fostered an environment where the other docents and I wanted to come to work, making the experience more than just a job. Beyond his role as a supervisor in the planetarium, Matt played a pivotal role in supporting and guiding me through the development of my PhD project in astronomy and education. When faced with the challenge of assessing children's ideas about the apparent motion of the sun, moon, and stars, Matt quickly devised a practical solution. He suggested constructing a small dome out of PVC pipes that could be easily assembled and disassembled in a school setting, and within days, Matt had a prototype built and ready for me to use in my research. In conclusion, Matthew Linke's exceptional mentorship qualities make him an outstanding candidate for the Great Lakes Planetary Association Mentor Award. His support, guidance, and commitment to supporting early career planetarians have not only shaped my career, but have had a lasting impact on the broader field of science education. I wholeheartedly recommend Matt for this well-deserved recognition. Sincerely, Julia Plummer.
All right, congratulations, Matt. I think we are able to let you say a few words.
Do you want to talk?
Oh. And we're still there.
Yeah, you're live.
You're like,
That's great. Still life. It was a great comment to hear people I've worked with before, people I've worked with them. It's amazing, and I'm just not find ways to put all that to whether it's gorgeous, it's wonderful, and I'm so great that people I've talked with over time are still doing current with that, and I hope it's running too well. I talked to a few of them as it is now. Others I don't see them always, but it's great to know that this is happening, and there's nothing more I could do to make it more important than that. I'm just very grateful to be part of that, and among that group that has worked with me in other ways over time. And so I enjoy myself very much. I do many things. I have a telescope. I have fun things like that. So I'm just really, really, really excited by all this has come in tonight. I'm very grateful to hear that. Thank you very, very much.
And thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to, before we end, a shout out to Lori Davis, Matt's wife, for keeping this a secret and helping us get him here on Zoom. So thank you, Lori. I know you're there.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, folks. So I was talking to Gary Beckstrom this morning, and he said he actually has this letter. Way back on April 30th of 1967, a letter was written to Vondell Chamberlain, the then president of the Great Lakes Planetarium Association. This letter from Armand Spitz begins, "Dear friend Chamberlain, I hardly need express to you my appreciation for the letters in which you inform me of the honor of the Planetarium Society is conferring upon me by instituting a series of lectures in my name, and for your other messages of encouragement since my illness began, now almost 9 months ago. You have heard me say many times that, in my opinion, the full potential of the planetarium, and I use that word in the broadest possible connotation, has yet barely been scratched. It is my earnest hope that the people who are chosen to be the Armand Spitz lecturers will be selected because of the fact that they have creative imaginations in this field and the courage to visualize the achievement of ideals in a practical way by use of the planetarium instrument. I have always dreamed of its use to help produce more and better astronomers, and I believe that this is now coming to pass. Perhaps I have dreamed equally long and earnestly about its being used as a catalyst to begin reactions which will help people understand each other individually and collectively. So please, in your selection of speakers, choose those who are not ashamed to acknowledge that they have a dream. And let the point always be stressed that we, as thinking beings, occupy a unique vantage point in nature between the macrocosm and the microcosm, and that we have the intellectual capability of comprehending both. Greetings, and thanks also to the members of the Planetarium Society. Good luck to you all. Cordially, Armand Spitz. Our Spitz lecturer tonight is Ms. Joanne Young. She's the co-founder and managing director of Audiovisual Imagineering, a company that has proudly been devoted to serving the planetarium community for the past 47 years. She was one of the founding members, serving as president of the International Laser Display Association in 1987. She became a founding member of GLPA and IPS about 42 years ago. During that time, AVI developed and patented full dome laser technology with laser shows, produced the full dome version of The Little Star That Could, The Moon, The Weather, Legends of the Night Sky, and Perseus and Andromeda, and Legends of the Night Sky, Orion, all of which I have. Joanne served as IPS president in 2015 and 2016. In addition to her professional life, Joanne served as a missionary to India and Kenya, serving the poor and orphans for 6 years. She is married and the proud mother of 2 children and 7 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to tonight's Spitz lecturer, Ms. Joanne Young.
Wow, thank you. This is quite a thing to be coming up here after the memorial service, these great people, mentors of mine included, and then about the mentors. And I just want to say, before I get started with Stories in the Stars, when I was first IPS president, Sharon Shanks said, you have to write for the planetarium. And it was like, oh. So I came to a GLPA conference, and for the first time, there was all these awards for the mentors, and how the mentees so honored the mentors, and how you could see that the mentors had really given their life, poured their lives into the mentees, and they were so acknowledged. I had to write all about that. That was my first edition for the president's message in the Planetarian magazine. So I just want to thank GLPA for what you do and how you honor one another. Thank you. And now also here we have Armin Spitz, who this award is all because of him. And all he wanted to do was to be able to give to all of us and to people. And so I was thinking, what have I done that would deserve this? And so I thought, well, I'll just start with this. What do Armin Spitz and I have in common? And so I looked up some history, and I found out he was born in Philadelphia. I was born in Philadelphia. He was educated at the University of Pennsylvania. My aunt and uncle had a luncheonette at the University of Pennsylvania. He went to college without receiving a degree. Oh, when I found that out, I didn't feel so bad. Me too. He started a business and went bankrupt. I started a business, but I haven't gone bankrupt. He discovered an interest in astronomy on a voyage after his bankruptcy. And I imagine that he saw the stars for the first time, because if you live in Philadelphia, you don't see the stars. He was on a cruise. And so I just want to share this little story, which has something we have in common. I was much younger. I had my little kids with me. I didn't know what a planetarium was, and took them to a planetarium in Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. It was a little dome, concrete dome, and we went inside and sat there with about 24 other people on bench seats. I'd never been in a planetarium. They turned the lights out and revealed the stars. And I just was so overwhelmed, I started crying. And my daughter said, "Mommy, why are you crying?" And I couldn't explain. It was the stars. I had never seen them before. So what I found out later was that star field was the Spitz star field. Then Armin Spitz was in the process of building the Space Transit Planetarium in Miami when he, I think he suffered a series of strokes. And our first, AVI's first planetarium show was at the Miami Space Transit Planetarium. He was semi-retired and died in Fairfax, Virginia. I lived in Fairfax, Virginia when we were really developing AVI. And in his book, in Pinpoint Planetarium, he described the sky and the legends in the night sky. Well, AVI didn't write a book, but we wrote Legends of the Night Sky, Orion. And it was heavily funded by Spitz. So he's meant so much to me. And then we've just been able to leap on because of him. Now, oh, there it is, Legends of the Night Sky. Thank you, Spitz. So I forget what I'm supposed to say next. So I may go to the next slide and then go back real fast. Oh, yeah. This is a painting by Duke Johnson. He's the planetary director at Clark Planetarium. And after being in planetariums for so long and writing Legends of the Night Sky, Orion, and Perseus and Andromeda, I started imagining people with no TV, no cell phones, no movies, no books, just sitting under the night sky, hearing the stories in the stars. And Duke Johnson took this picture, and it's a real cave in Utah, and but I thought people were living in there at one time, but it's really a granary. But if you look at the night sky, just imagine what it was like at nighttime, sitting under the stars and hearing the same story told over and over by the tribal leaders, whatever tribe from ancient times. They had to tell the same story. It had to be a perfect story. You couldn't change a word. And it could only be told by the leaders of the tribe or whatever people group. So imagine this. If you were sitting with your father and he's telling you the story of the night before Christmas, and he says, "'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a dog." You would not allow that. And that's the way it was with the stories in the stars. They were passed down exactly, they had to be passed down exactly as they were told by the previous leader. So, I'm going to go back. So, after hearing these stories about the night sky, learning from all of you, it was quite late in life when I started to read the Bible. And just, I was just reading different books of the Bible, and I came upon Job. Oops, wrong way. And in that story, God is talking to Job, and he said, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion?" What? This is what? God is talking about Orion in this book and Pleiades. How long ago was this? Job is the oldest book in the Bible. Wait a minute, we just did a show on Orion. How could this story still be being told? And so it was, oops, wrong way, sorry. Then he said, "Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in its season? That's the zodiac. It's a zodiac. That means the way the sun moves through the constellations. That was the oldest book in the Bible. I couldn't get over it because that means if it's in the Bible and it's written, and it's the oldest book, then they had to be telling the stories long before that, because the way it was talked about was very familiar. So these stories were being told in very ancient times. Oh, then he adds, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? That's him. No. So that was written between 2100 and 1900 BCE. So then another part in the Bible was the heavens declared the glory of God. The expanse shows his handiwork. Day by day they pour forth speech, and night to night they reveal knowledge. There is no language, nor are there words where their voice is not heard. I started thinking, that has to be, maybe day by day they pour forth speech, and night by night they reveal knowledge. Is this the stories in the stars? I don't know. So I'm looking, and I start really searching, because I love the idea of the stories being told so long ago and carried down, and they become recorded, and they're still with us. So I really did my homework, and I studied I only wanted to study historians and what astronomers had to say. And so I went to one of the oldest historians, and that was Flavius Josephus, who lived 37 to 100 AD. And he said something that was so interesting to me, and I'm going to read it if you don't mind. He was talking about Adam and his son Seth and Enoch were the first astronomers. And so, I think of astronomers as with telescopes. But no, they also were the inventors of that peculiar sort of wisdom which is concerned with the heavenly bodies and their order, and that their inventions might not be lost before they were sufficiently known. Upon Adam's prediction that the world was to be destroyed at one time by the force of fire and at another time by the violence and quantity of water, they made two pillars, one of brick and the other of stone. They inscribed their discoveries on them both, that in the case the pillar of brick should be destroyed by the flood, the pillar of stone might remain, and exhibit those discoveries to mankind, and also inform them that there was another pillar of brick erected by them. Now this remains in the land of Syria to this day. And that is Syria, the current Syria today. So I remembered that there was from when I was in elementary school, I heard about the Mesopotamians, and we studied them, the Sumerians. And so I had heard that they also had a cylinder, of astronomy that was recorded. And so I ordered this Life magazine from June 4th, 1956. Just do your addition and you'll be able to figure out how old I am. But this was the same magazine that I had fallen in love with in studying the ancients. This was a cylinder that was discovered in 2300 BCE. And it's in cuneiform, so it was recently discovered within 200 years. And it has the 12 constellations. Do you see this? These are ancient stories. because they were written, they had to be being told before they were written. So how far back does all of this go? This is a Mazzaroth it's a mosaic that was on the floor of a synagogue in the 6th century in Israel. And if you notice, in the middle, it's the sun on a chariot, and with stars and the moon in the background. This is in the center. And the Mazzaroth means the way, and it's the sun making its way through the constellations on the ecliptic. It's just like, I can't believe this. And this is, so I'm going to back up so you don't read that yet. So this was just too much. It meant a lot to me. This is, these stories are with us today. We're talking about them. This is crazy. Here we are. I had to find out if there was anything, any evidence of there being stories earlier, or tell me more about this. So I researched and found there were a woman named Frances Ralston from England had spent 50 years researching these stories, the Mazzaroth. And she lived 1781 to 1864. She studied astronomy at the university. Women didn't study astronomy at the University of England in those times. She was a relative of William Wilberforce, and I don't know if you know who he is. He was the one featured in the movie Amazing Grace. He stopped the slave trade after years of fighting in Parliament to stop the slave trade. She worked with him. She also built schools for the poor and taught in the schools before anyone else did in England. She did it. She was really committed, a good woman. She spent over 50 years searching for the ancient names of the stars. She studied, to do this, she had to study Hebrew, Greek, Arabic, and hieroglyphics. There was no Google. She really had to study. She studied the ancient text of the Bible. She studied the Sumerian text, the ancient star maps, and studied the Arabic star names. And she found the similarities to find the truth of what those original stories were. And she published her findings in 1860. And she knew no one was going to read a book from a woman. So she just put little articles in publications and started a big stir. And of course, a lot of people didn't like what she wrote because she was a woman. But that's okay. We got over that one. So one of the things, I'm going to go back, sorry. So one of the things that she discovered was in the ancient, in the ruins of the temple, Dendera, there was a portico over this ancient temple. And in the portico was the zodiac, or the Mazzaroth, with the constellations, just like was in the Mazzaroth in the synagogue. But the difference was that they had the Sphinx in between Virgo and Leo. And there was a study done, there'll be more on this at the end of my talk, but it demonstrated the Sphinx had the head of a woman and the body of the lion. So, and it was placed between Virgo and Leo. And the idea is the story starts with Virgo and ends with Leo. Every year we're going to tell the story, but it starts here, ends here. So it was like each constellation was a chapter in the book. And so we start with Virgo. And I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to quickly go through this. The Virgo, virgin or maiden, the seed furrow. Now Virgo, it means virgin in Latin, but the interesting thing, it means the same in Hebrew, Greek, and Indian. So there's an original, clearly there's an original story that was told to the other cultures because they had the same name for that constellation in their own language. So how far back does it go to have all these ancient civilizations have a similar story? Now, this is what started getting me when I studied it, because it started shaking even my faith, because it was like, wait a minute, it didn't start in the Bible. It was way early, and it had to do with people that were looking at the stars. So, the brightest star is Spica, and it means seed or seed group, same as an ear of corn. And in Genesis, Zerah is when God promises seed of woman will crush Satan's head. It'll make a little more sense as we go. Al-Samek, meaning branch, which is part of Virgo, the brightest star. It was used in scriptures and refers to the sent one. In Chinese, it's Zijiang or whatever, and it meaning the second general, meaning that the first general sent the second general. We're talking Chinese here. And so the story started very early. Within Virgo are the decans, and one of them is Coma, which means the desired son. And for the Egyptians, they were thinking it had to be the infant prince. This picture is in the portico, but there's similarities in the faith of many Christians and Jews, that there'll be a desired son. This is an old story. In the same decan, there's the centaur slaying the beast. Even though that's in the southern hemisphere now, in ancient times it was not. Boötes, the herdsman, is also referred to in ancient times as the righteous shepherd. This is all within Virgo. It was too familiar to me. I knew it was just too familiar. So I actually had to step back from all of this. It was too much to know that these stories were being told all over civilizations. Now, I'm going to go back. Oh, no, I'll tell you. So while I'm going to go back, sorry. Don't read that yet. I was planning to come here and, Now, first, I'm going to tell you this. I started telling people the stories in the stars. And I didn't feel really good about it because you hadn't taught me. And if you hadn't taught me these things, maybe they were just, BS. Just, I turned to you guys for this. And so, but I started telling a few friends about this, and they would come over and listen. I had to make a PowerPoint. Then they started bringing their friends, and they wanted to know each month, and they invited others to come and their children. And I tell you, I was telling them this stuff, but I felt uncomfortable because I hadn't heard it anywhere else. So I thought, maybe this is fake, and I continued doing research. I stopped because it couldn't be true, because you're not saying it. I haven't heard this. And so to this day, I started years ago, they say, please tell us the stories. And then other people that they've talked to will say to me, can you tell us the stories you told them? And so I just, building up confidence and continuing to research evidence. And I hope that you will too, because you're my family. I need you to say if this is BS or not. Are these stories, were they really told? And they do have an influence on what we believe today. I mean, let's face it, there are all kinds of cultures, but a big part of the Western civilization is a culture that says these stories. So anyway, okay, now I go, because I was looking for why someone would ask me to be a Spitz lecturer. And so I went to the GLPA website, and I was looking for what it means to be, what should I say? And you wouldn't believe this, I come across this first thing is Carl Wenning's 1986 talk on In Defense of Mythology. 1986, he gives a paper, not the lecture, but a paper. And I talked to him and asked him if I could use part of what he wrote in his paper. And he wrote about the importance of the sky to the ancients and all of that, about migration and the time to harvest and all of that, but there's so much more. He said, these stories are not to be thought of as meaningless because they serve a variety of different purposes. Stories explain answers to passed down tribal customs. We get that. Stories help to explain and communicate moral truths. Yes, they do. Stories help to teach theology. I spelled that wrong. Stories also help to pass down the historical record. Stories help to explain personal duties, providing role models for appropriate action. Yeah, all these things are so important. We look at stories today. We watch a lot of movies, TV, series, books, but they're not the same stories, and they teach us many, many, many different things. So we just, be whatever you want to be. But in the original stories, they were the same stories. So you can see how cultures were developed, how people learned what it was to be good to your elders. Please, everyone, it's still important to be good to your elders. So these are the importance of the ancient stories and how it affected humankind. So, by the way, Carl said it was okay for me to change his word myths into stories, because that's what they are. Now, I hadn't talked to you yet, so I went to other astronomers. And so I wanted to pick famous ones. What did they do? And in the books that they wrote, Cassini, and this is a long time ago, he said, "It is impossible to doubt that astronomy was invented from the beginning of the world. History, profane as well as sacred, testifies to this truth." And I loved it. And the importance of astronomy, of studying the stars. And I don't know where the stories came from, because they certainly don't look like the constellations, but something was going on with human beings. And we have, and I was talking to Dave Weinrich, and he said, "Have you read Schiaparelli's book, Astronomy in the Old Testament?" And so I ordered it, and it was one of these, you can't get this, it's unknown books, you know. And so this really blew my mind, because you know who he is. He's the one that discovered the canals on Mars. And he worked so long in the Milan Observatory. And after he retired, he really wanted to study the astronomy in the Old Testament. And so one of the things that he discovered was that I'm going to read it. The ancient peoples who became known as the Hebrews did not establish any great civilizations, as did the Sumerians, the Greeks, and the Egyptians. In that time, they did not establish any great discoveries in science, literature, or politics. Their natural gifts, as well as the course of events, carried them to a different mission of no smaller importance, that of purifying the religious sentiment and of preparing the way for monotheism. Well, now he's talking about my people. He's talking, my people all the way back didn't build the civilizations that the Sumerians did, the Greeks, the Romans, but the one thing that they did was keep these stories. And they're still here. So it's like really finding my roots. And it blew me away. Anyway, so I was, now you see I'm still in discovery. And if you're interested, please dig into it, because I can tell you there's a whole group of people that want to hear the stories. They're nagging me. And I just want to know that they're believing everything I say. So I want to make sure I'm telling them the truth, as much as it is known to be the truth, you know. So 3 weeks before I left to come here, a girlfriend called me and said, "You've got to come here to the studio. You won't believe what Rick is working on." She said, "He's working on something that you've been teaching." And so I went there and saw this film that he was working on, only part of it. He won't finish until next year. And after it was, I watched and I said, "Have you talked to anyone that I've been talking to?" He said, "What are you talking about?" Did you know that I've been teaching this? No. So this wasn't influenced by me at all. So it tells me that these stories are being told. And so I'm going to play it for you. Let me see. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes.
I'm here in Pompeii, Italy, where in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius exploded, decimating the entire city, its inhabitants, almost all the structure as well. We're going to be discussing something very interesting in this special presentation, and it's about the constellations as seen by the ancient world, also known by the Hebrews as the name the Mazzaroth. So join me. One of the most fascinating places in all the world is Pompeii, Italy. This is the ancient city, if you remember, that was devastated by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Today, the ruins offer a snapshot, if you will, into life in the first century. And the remains of the once bustling streets can still be seen. Shops that once offered spices, incense, clothing, jewelry, captured in time. There also are the bodies buried beneath the ashes, citizens of this once great city of commerce that remind visitors today of how precious and unpredictable life can be. One would be hard-pressed to find a more beautiful setting than Pompeii, Italy. Pompeii contains multitudes of artwork and murals, some of which focus on the belief that there is a story found within the stars themselves. And this is where we find ourselves in our presentation today. This series is dedicated to the memories of Drs. Bollinger, Race, Rolston, and the late Chuck Missler. These are just a few names of those who completed the most extensive volumes that we currently possess on this topic of what the ancient Hebrews called the Mazzaroth, and what we know today as the constellations. It was during the years of 1798 and 1799 that Napoleon Bonaparte marched his troops through the ancient Valley of the Kings. Napoleon, by many, is believed to be the one responsible for the mutilation of the nose of the Sphinx. But by the time Napoleon and his troops had actually come across this huge monument, it had already experienced the scars of time, weather, and her enemies. Napoleon brought a huge team of scientists to find out everything that they could concerning Egypt. And they made discoveries as they entered the ruins and the temples of the pharaohs, and they sketched out their findings in a book entitled The Description of Egypt. Now, one of the discoveries which was made was found in the temple of Dendera in Esna on May 25th, 1799. As they made their way through the ancient structure, they looked up and they saw it for the first time. It was a carving out of stone, which has become today known as the Rock of Ages. It's housed in the Louvre Museum, and you can see it there. It is the only complete map that we currently possess of the ancient skies as seen by the ancients. These early pictographs found in the Dendera temple date back to before the 4th millennium BCE and are almost identical to what we know today as the boundary stone pictographs, and also they appear to be a complete copy of the Mesopotamian zodiac as well. Now, in this carving of the Egyptian zodiac, their view of the heavens, there was something that seemed completely out of place. It was the image of the Sphinx. It was placed between two constellations, Virgo and Leo, the lion and the woman. The other ancient zodiac pictographs also show the image of a woman, but kneeling on a lion. But here we have the image placed directly in the zodiac, never before. So what is the connection between the woman, the lion, and the signs of the zodiac? Well, now the term Sphinx, the lion and the woman, means to bind closely together. And many feel that this is what the ancients meant for the Sphinx to bind together, a story. A story told, it seems, before time itself. A story that predates the flood of Noah. It's the story in the sky. We know that the face on the Sphinx has been carved over and over several times. Some surmise that originally the face on this monument was actually that of a woman, but not just any woman, but the face of the first woman, Chava. In English, we know her as Eve.
Yeah, well, actually, I not have any more. I'll just speak. Oh, it's Chaparelli. Yeah, so I think it's important, that we continue with the stories in the stars. And they're more serious than we've been telling. They're serious to our indigenous peoples. They're very serious about them. We have a whole civilization that's built on them, and we haven't been telling the story. So I'm just telling you all of this to be aware. And if you're interested, please look into it. Because of you, I've become interested in the stars. Because of you, I have developed 2 Legends shows. Because of you, I have gone around the world and learned so many things. When we were suffering so much after 9/11, and we lost so much business, just canceled. We used to do laser shows for corporations, amusement parks, and planetariums. And we were just going down so fast, I thought we would go bankrupt. And we brought in a professional, and he said, you're going to have to give up one of these groups that you work with. And the ones to keep are going to be the corporations and amusement parks. You're going to have to drop planetariums. And I couldn't do it. I could not let go of you. And so I dropped the corporations and the amusement parks. I didn't care about the money. I couldn't bear to be without you. I could not bear to live without you. I am old. I am not going to retire. You will not see me unless I'm useless or dead. Because I don't want to live without you. And all of this interest that I have in the stars and in the ancients is because of you. And Mary Holt said something today that you told me that she said in her talk about the stories in the stars. I can't even remember what it was. But Mary, yes, what did you say? About when you were giving your talk about this.
There was a few different names for the sun that he was talking about.
Yes. Oh, it's a few different names. Okay. But so anyway, but I want to thank you. Thank you for how you've enriched my life. And thank you for being such good people, because I can tell you, you're the only good ones. The corporations, it's like, whoa. So, and the amusement parks are just running all around the park, and everyone's looking at but you guys are real. You're not working because you're getting rich. You laugh. And I have to make my living off of you. So I just want to thank you very much. I want you to know I love you. You know that's true. I do not want to live without you. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any questions before we let Joanne off the stage here?
She doesn't get to get off the stage till I get my pictures. Mark and Joanne.
Well, I'll get the certificate. Yeah.
No, are you?
Okay. If there aren't any questions, then I got a little something for you, Joanne. And I'll read from this plaque here: in recognition of your dedicated service and contributions to the planetarium profession and science education, we would like to present to you the Armand Spitz Memorial Lecturer plaque.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to let you know that this woman has done so much behind the scenes. Everything that I did in Ghana, she was behind, and she encouraged me. She's shown her love, she's shown her support, and still continues to do it to this very day. And I'm not the only one. Behind the scenes, she's helped so many people. She really does love us. And she's shown it by her actions. And she's an incredible, incredible supporter, and we all love her. Thank you, Joanne.
Okay, thank you very much. Just one last note before we adjourn for the night. Eric Mellenbrink asked me to share some unfortunate news that the Robert Goddard Planetarium has been completely destroyed in flooding, in the Spring River flood. And, we are a community, so if anybody wants to lend support to the folks there, either with words or deeds, just wanted to let you know about that. Unfortunate. I don't know, actually. But anyways, thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I will see you over at the hospitality suite.